The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams On Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
It's picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp walks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Woods, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA! No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters. Strutting his stump. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler. Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson.
After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career.
Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand. Todd Gurley, 20, 10. Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 158. I'm joined here by Alexis, Kraft, and we got an awesome show for you. We have Khalen Saunders from Western Illinois, defensive lineman. You may know him as the guy that did the backflip at 322 pounds. He's coming on the show. And we're pretty thrilled to bring that interview to you, and I think we're going to continue to bring these interviews in kind of a rapid pace. Wouldn't you say so, Alexis?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We've got a lot of things lined up, and I think people are going to be really excited and have a lot of fun listening to all the people that we're going to bring on, and especially tonight when we have on Khalen.
Yeah, and why don't we just throw it over to him? It was a great interview, and we'll kick that off. We'll start with that, and then we're going to talk about the Rams pre-draft meetings, because while there is an article on Downtown Rams that was just recently updated with Tavon Coney meeting with the Rams, we got a lot to talk about there, because I don't think we've mentioned it on the show, and there's a lot of good names on there, so we're going to be excited to bring you that. We'll talk a little bit about that, but here is Khalen Saunders. Welcome back, guys, to another podcast. We are lucky to have our guest, Western Illinois defensive line, Khalen Saunders. Don't call him Khalen. That's actually right in his Twitter handle. How's it going, Khalen? Thanks for joining the show.
Good, man. Oh, yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. And everything's fine out here in California. So, nothing can be too bad when you're in California.
Very, very true. And actually, to start off this interview, something that, I recently learned, and something that I mentioned to you earlier, is that you're actually from St. Louis, which is where I'm from and where I live. So, I obviously found that super exciting. And I just kind of wanted to start this off by asking what it was like in your experience growing up in St. Louis, and, something that you miss about St. Louis, or your favorite thing about home.
Oh, yeah. Well, growing up in St. Louis, it was fun. I obviously live in the inner city, and, you would know, off of West Florissant and Riverview in that area. So, okay. I grew up in the city primarily my whole life, but that being said, I got the opportunity to go to a county school in Parkway Central. And so, I kind of got the best of both worlds, or not best of both worlds, because living in the city is not the best of anything, but, being able to be out in Chesterfield a lot and get that type of exposure was really fun. And I had a lot of good memories out there in the Chesterfield, Creve Coeur area. And it was definitely a lot of fun growing up and being able to play football at a really elite school in Parkway Central, and being in a Parkway school district in general is one of the top districts in Missouri. So I was very fortunate for that. And the biggest thing I miss about St. Louis, no doubt, is the food. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I eat a lot, so I don't you don't get to weigh how much I weigh without eating a lot. So I definitely miss the food, St. Louis a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you miss some toasted ravioli or Emo's pizza.
Yeah, you already know.
Yeah, but you're right. Parkway Central is a really good school, and I competed against them a lot. I went to Eureka, and
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, and I had a lot of friends in the Parkway School District, and I think it's awesome that you're from the St. Louis area and making us proud. And I'm sure that you'll be back to visit, and a lot of people back home will be excited to see you when you come back.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't wait to. Hopefully, if everything goes right, I wanted to have my draft party in St. Louis actually, and
oh wow,
because my dad actually works at Hollywood Casino, so
okay.
I talked to him about getting a ballroom, and if we can do that, then hopefully I can come back there for the draft party.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I know that would be a really big deal, and I'm sure that a lot of people would be there to support you.
No doubt.
Yeah, and obviously you're talking about high school, and when looking you up, Khalen, I was kind of shocked to see how good of a rusher you were. I mean, 800 yards, nearly 800 yards rushing, your last year of high school, and now you're terrorizing the backfield from the defensive side of the ball. How did you make just a tremendous transition? I mean, I'm sure that wasn't easy.
Oh yeah, no. So yeah, I played a lot of running back in high school, but I also did play D-line as well. So I was one of those guys that played both sides of the ball. But I did focus on running back a lot more because, I mean, why wouldn't you? Like his offense is fun. So I was, I focused on offense a little bit more in high school. But, no, I played defense all the way, almost every year from like 8th or 7th grade. And I was playing D-line and stuff. So it was a transition as far as the collegiate level, but I'd always been used to having my hand in the ground, rushing the passer and all those kinds of things. But I honestly, though, it feels like it kind of helped me playing running back a little bit because I can kind of get into the mind and into the thought process of a running back or offense in general when I play defense because, I know a lot of the looks and I know blocking schemes that come with those looks. So it kind of helped me as far as that transition in college.
Yeah, I'm sure that having that experience as a running back definitely gave you an edge when playing defense and, being able to understand what's going through the mind of a running back and knowing what they might be thinking. And something that I wanted to bring up is kind of the big story surrounding you during the Senior Bowl was that your daughter was born during the Senior Bowl. And I just wanted to ask how you made the decision to stay at the Senior Bowl instead of leaving for the birth of your daughter. And I just wanted to ask kind of the story behind that, the thought process behind that, and also, congratulations on the birth of your daughter.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about her.
Thank you, first and foremost. But it was not me by myself, like an individual decision by any means. I talked to my fiance months prior, or not months prior, maybe weeks prior, whenever I got that invitation to the Senior Bowl, because we already knew that the Senior Bowl is January 26th, and our daughter's due date was January 31st. So we had been talking leading up to the Senior Bowl, like, possible scenarios. And so since the due date was January 31st, her and I were pretty confident that she would come either the 31st or later, because everyone had been saying that the first child usually comes later, past the due date or on the due date. So we were confident that she was going to wait, but as we see, she was impatient. So she came out about a week early on the 22nd, which was the second day of being there. It was the first day of practice and my second day being there. And Yeah, like I said, we had already talked about it leading up, but like, she told me that she was feeling lightheaded and like feeling like she was having contractions and things like that. So, I told her like if she wants me to be there, then that's no problem. And it was funny because a lot of people would think that I was like the one saying I wanted to stay, and she was telling me to come home, but it was the complete opposite. Like I wanted to come home, and help and support her because it's hard to have a kid and not only have the child and go through the labor, but afterwards, that first night being with the child and they wake up and cry a lot and stuff like that. So even though there's not much I could have did because I don't breastfeed, so like it wasn't like I couldn't really satisfy the baby, but like at least I can be there to help, and get her things when she needed. So I asked her if she wanted me to be there, and she said no. We already talked about it, and she understood what it meant to my draft stock and to our future for me to stay at the Senior Bowl. So she completely she told me from the jump, like, don't come home. I think that was actually in the text that she sent when she told me about her going into labor and stuff. She was like, she said all the stuff she had said about going into labor, and in caps, all caps, she put "do not come home," telling me like, like you need to stay out there, and this is like a job interview and things of that nature. So, I was just thankful for her to support me that thoroughly through the whole process.
Yeah, that's awesome, and what a week having your first child born and also getting to participate in the Senior Bowl. I'm sure it was just an incredible week for you. Yeah,
no doubt. It was obviously coming from a smaller school. The Senior Bowl was one of the biggest opportunities I could ever imagine, and obviously that was a lot. It was a lot going on during that opportunity, but I'm very glad that I got to make the most of it.
Yeah, the Senior Bowl was a lot of fun. Obviously seeing you and so many others do their thing. I was there last year, and this was my second year, so it's pretty cool. I was able to speak with you at the Senior Bowl. It was after the game, in that little lobby section where you basically got mobbed. And and I was there when I came on the field, and all of a sudden I see you doing a backflip. And I know everyone at home was seeing that because that was already on like your social media. I guess you had the backflip on your social media, so they already put that on NFL Network. But I was down in Mobile, and I had never seen the video. So, like, I saw that in person. I was just marveled, man. I mean, that was incredible. But with that being said, what was your favorite game you played in? Because I'm sure, you went up against all different schools, and you obviously had a great career. What's the one game that really sticks out to you?
Well, my favorite game I think my favorite game of my career was Illinois State my junior year, so 2 years ago, because we're rivals. Illinois State and Western Illinois are rivals, and we hadn't beaten them, I think, in like a 10-year stretch or something. And so we played them at their place, and we ended up winning the game. And then I had a good stat-wise game as well, but just the energy of that game was just, it wasn't like we weren't leading the whole time. I think we actually went into the locker room down like maybe 14-0, and we came back and won. I think it was 31-14. So that was by far my most favorite game. And then I would say like my best game that I remember is this past year against North Dakota State, because they're like a powerhouse. I have number of respect for that program. But that being said, I feel like I was very effective in defeating the type of schemes that they were running against us.
Yeah, and speaking of college and Western Illinois, what was the main factor for you in choosing Western Illinois as your college?
Well, I always kind of say I didn't choose Western Illinois. They chose me. And to be quite honest, I didn't have any D1 offers, and Western Illinois was the only school that came to my school, and talked to me and ultimately offered me after a couple home visits and things like that. And so, like I said, they chose me. I didn't choose them by any means. I mean, I did choose them obviously because it was my home, but I mean, more so in a way that, like, I didn't have anyone else to choose over them. So I was committed to Western 100%. You know, I wasn't like a lot of guys go to a school like Western and think, maybe I'll be here for my first 2 years and then, you know, transfer up or anything like that. When I got my offer from Western, I thought immediately that I wanted to be there all 4 years, and I wanted to, you know, compete at that level for all 4 years. I don't care about anybody else coming up to me after, you know, a couple of years and trying to get me to grad transfer or anything like that. So, you know, I chose Western because they believed in me enough to have me play D1 ball, and that was my dream growing up. You know, from childhood all the way till my senior year of high school is to go play Division I football. So I was just thankful to get that opportunity with Western, and I took it.
Yeah, and Khalen, I mean, your freshman year, you know, you redshirt your freshman year. Take us through that experience. You know, what is it like being there but not able to really step on the field?
Oh yeah. Well, at first, obviously coming out of high school, when everybody's the man. You know, everybody is one of the, if not the best player on their team coming out of high school going into college. So it was kind of humbling, if anything. But that being said, I was kind of humbled to start with because, like I said, I didn't get any offers. So, like, you know, I feel like my redshirt process was a little different than everyone else's because I didn't really expect, you know, much. Like, I knew I only had one offer. I knew I was undersized and all these things like that. So I didn't really, like, come in thinking I was, you know, the big dog on campus or anything. So I was fortunate enough to be under some guys that had, you know, one guy transferred in from Virginia Tech. Another guy had been there for 4 years already, you know, two of the other guys. And so, like, I just learned under them. I learned everything that I could. And, you know, I implemented it to my game. And the redshirt process was just about getting stronger and faster. And I wasn't really worried about, you know, I mean, like, once they tell you you're redshirting, you don't have to worry about, like, remembering plays and all of that type of stuff. All you got to do is worry about getting better. So I took that to heart because, like, you know, that's a whole part of the game that you can take out if you don't have to worry about memorizing plays or anything like that. All you got to worry about is lifting and conditioning and, you know, giving the other team a look. And I also took pride in that, like, being on a scout team and going against the starters. Like, I'm going against guys that play against, you know, starting D-lines, other places. So why not, you know, use that as an opportunity? So my redshirt experience, it was pretty smooth, and I made a lot of good friends that ended up being like my roommates for the next 3 or 4 years and things like that. And so, I had no problem with redshirting, and I'm happy I did because I know some guys that didn't redshirt that wish they could get it back. And if they would have got it back, you know, like, for example, I played with a guy named Jalen Ackland, and he unfortunately didn't get to redshirt. But then his senior year, he goes out and has like 1,400 receiving yards. So, like, imagine if that was his junior year and he got another year after that. So, you know, it's just unfortunate, that situation, but I was very happy to redshirt.
Yeah, and I can appreciate everything you said about that. I played soccer in college, and my freshman year, I got injured in preseason, and I had to redshirt. And I actually, looking back, am so grateful for that experience because really you can learn a lot, I think, by not playing in the games and by still participating and being with the team. But it's almost beneficial, I think, sometimes to take a step back and take that extra year to learn the system and learn things just about playing in college that, you know, making that adjustment. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of be on the sidelines for that. So I totally understand what you're saying there. And then I would also say, what would be kind of your advice to maybe some kids out there who, like you mentioned, don't have a lot of D1 offers or maybe not any D1 offers, and they are debating, you know, on if they should continue playing maybe at a smaller school or, you know, like you, they have hopes of playing at the next level one day. What would be your advice to them, or what would be maybe even a recruiting pitch for them to consider Western Illinois?
Oh, yeah. No, I would say first and foremost, do not by any means give up, you know, the dream that you have. Because I've seen a lot of guys that I went to school with that had all the offers. You know, they had big time offers from MAC schools, from all those schools, and they ended up at Western because of other reasons like grades and stuff like that. And I can tell you that, you know, those guys aren't any better than the guys that only got one offer. Because clearly I'm here talking to you today as an NFL prospect, and I was one of the guys that had one offer and one of the guys that had 0 stars and all of that stuff. So, like, you know, you can't get, like, it's almost, I think it's beneficial, the rating system in high school, you know, the stars and all of that, but at the same time, it's almost, it just doesn't matter, you know, because, like, at the end of the day, it's the same game, it's the same rules. And if you can play, you can play, and you will be found. So, you know, Western is in the middle of nowhere in Illinois, and like I said, I'm sitting here talking to you as a NFL prospect and a high-rated NFL prospect. So if that doesn't tell you that it doesn't matter where you go, it just matters what you do. You know, it doesn't matter. Oh, I ended up at Western Illinois, or I ended up at Mizzou, or I ended up at Alabama, Ohio State. I just got done playing with everybody that ended up at the bigger schools than me, and I got Reese's Player of the Week out of everybody that was there. You know, so, like, I'm not trying to brag or anything like that, but that's pretty much my pitch of going to Western or a smaller school, because it honestly does not matter about any ratings, any stars, any of that type of stuff. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Colin. And another thing I thought was pretty cool is, you know, going through your film, you caught a touchdown pass, and I thought it was a very impressive route run by yourself. What was it like doing something like that as a defensive lineman?
Yeah, no, my coach, they knew from early on that I play offense, and I told them, I was like, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and beg you, like, because I know a lot of, you know, D linemen or defensive players in general want to score a touchdown, so they sit there and, like, beg to get on offense. But I just told them, I'm like, I mean, short yardage, anything like that, you know, I got the film to back it up. I clearly know what I'm doing, and they knew it and they trusted me. So we kind of started a package for my redshirt sophomore year, or my redshirt freshman year even. We had a little package where I was on offense, and that package is just expanded. It started from me just being the lead blocker and swiping across doing blocks. And then my junior year, they started, like, handing me the ball. And then, like you see this year, in senior year, you know, it evolved to passes and running and all of that stuff. So, you know, I've done it, especially that route to the flats. I've done that literally, like, maybe over 300 times in high school. So, like, I knew what it felt like to do it, and I knew, you know, the steps I needed to take. And the coaching staff trusted me to do it, and they let me do it. And fortunately, you know, I got the catch and scored it.
Well, I just thought it was really impressive, of course. And one quick question, and I'll throw it over to Alexis to kind of finish this off. You talk about, you know, obviously running the football. You're a defensive lineman. Who was your favorite player growing up?
My favorite player of all time is Michael Vick. You know, I think it's honestly because, you know, growing up playing Madden and stuff, he's like one of those cheat code type of guys. Oh yeah. And so I always would pick him.
Well, you're sounding like a cheat code now.
I appreciate that, man. But I don't know if, even on Madden, I don't know if I can achieve the type of stuff that Mike Vick did on Madden. Like, you can put him in at running back and he'd still get like 150 rushing yards. So, you know, that was one of them dudes I always looked up to as far as just being a tremendous athlete. And then also, I think another reason he was my favorite player is because my dad actually played quarterback, and he resembled Mike Vick's playing style. He was one of the rushing type of quarterbacks. Like, he wasn't a pocket pass or anything. He was like pretty much a running back that can throw. And so I think that's another reason why I idolize him. But that's my favorite player of all time. My favorite player in the NFL is Aaron Donald, and that's actually why I wear number 99, because you know, I really look up to him. He actually had reached out to me. I think it was like a few months, maybe 2 months ago. He reached out to me and said, you know, just continue to work and continue to play how you play, and that was really motivational to me because you see a guy that's under 6'2" or under 6'1", whatever he is, just like me, and easily the best defensive lineman in the NFL. So, I'm trying to achieve that type of status.
Yeah, and I'm sure our listeners will be happy to hear that you're a big Aaron Donald fan, as we are and as a lot of people are. And that, we got to ask, it's a Los Angeles Rams fan podcast. Have you met with the Los Angeles Rams?
Yeah, I did. I had a really good conversation with them because, a lot of they had recently moved from St. Louis, so I had a lot of connections to the scouts that were at the Senior Bowl. And, I think one of the scouts actually went to school with my high school coach.
Oh, wow.
Or he went to school with Coach Goldie. So we had a long talk about that, but we really connected. And it was a great conversation though, and it was fun joking around about leaving St. Louis and stuff like that. But I told him no, I understand. Now it's funny. It's actually funny that I'm near Los Angeles right now training, and I'm from St. Louis. So I took the same path that the Rams did, and
yeah,
and I was like, I see why y'all did it. I'm out here now, and I would like to be in California myself.
Right, and we certainly, would love to see you end up a Los Angeles Ram, and I think it'd be really special to watch you alongside Aaron Donald. If you can imagine that would probably be amazing experience.
Yeah.
But to wrap it up, I guess the last question that I have is just for our listeners, who is, in your opinion, if you had to say, who is Khalen Saunders as a person and who is Khalen Saunders as a player?
I would say as a person, for me, I'm a very genuine person as far as just being real. I'm not gonna sit up here and just lie to people or blow smoke. My dad always would tell me that nobody owes you anything, and I took that kind of to heart. And so I just feel and that's another thing I would say is just as a player, is hardworking and determined because, like I said, nobody owes me anything. I've learned that through not having a lot of scholarship offers and, getting the opportunity to play at the only place I did get a scholarship to. And so, honestly, as a player and a person, it's just that determination factor and that selflessness is one of my two biggest attributes because, I'm willing to earn everything I get. And, I've never been good at any kind of handout or anything like that. So coming from the inner city of St. Louis, the city itself has taught me a lot about myself and about, others, about my surroundings. So, I'm a humble and gracious person, and that's the type of player I am too. I'm not gonna be a prima donna or anything like that. I just get to work and do anything I can to make the team better.
That's awesome. And, we were really excited to have you on, and both Jake and I are huge fans of yours and really admire you. And even more so now after talking to you, you just seem like such a great guy. And, I know for me being from St. Louis and living in St. Louis, it's really cool to see someone from my hometown doing the things that you're doing and making St. Louis proud. And I have no doubt that no matter where you end up, St. Louis is going to be really proud of you and follow you no matter where you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Khalen, it's been a pleasure. Like I said, we were able to talk briefly after the game, but, you were totally mobbed by people. I was mobbed by people.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. The setup they had there, I totally understand it, no locker room or anything, but you were in the middle of this little small room, and we're all getting encased against each other, and you have people sticking their cameras in people's faces, and yeah, so I tried to avoid that, and I do want to say I appreciate you because I said your name, and there were 8 other people, and you came over to me first, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time, and let's all keep in touch. We'll be fans for life, and hopefully end up in Horns.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Let's hope for it.
All right, Khalen. Well, you take care and stay healthy.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. Thanks, Colin.
Yep.
All right, guys, that was Khalen Saunders. Hope you guys enjoyed. Alexis, wasn't that a really fun interview? I mean, that was just a blast.
Yeah, I mean, he's just awesome and someone who I already was a huge fan of, and after talking to him, even more so, and somebody who I think is going to absolutely be a key factor on whatever team he goes to and is going to have a great career.
I completely agree. I think when you look at, what he brings to the table, the athleticism is rare. I'm really excited to see, what he runs and, his 10-yard split, to see that. But, this is somebody that may not have the quickest first step, but his next two steps really make him that scary of a player. I saw it in the Senior Bowl, getting through with ease on numerous occasions, playing next to Greg Gilmore on that defensive line, and watching him get that sack on Will Grier, and then kind of shouting out, the mother of his child doing the little celebration, rocking the baby. I thought that was really cool, and he just is a really cool dude, and I'm glad you guys have that St. Louis connection. Makes the podcast a lot more fun.
Yeah, definitely. And from just talking to him, he truly loves St. Louis and is proud to be from there, and me as well. And I have no doubt that he's going to make the city proud and make whatever team he goes to proud as well.
Yeah, and I just love that he, shouted out Aaron Donald like that. Let us all know that Aaron Donald reached out to him and that he wears his number for the reason of him. So I thought that was really cool because, maybe this is kind of a foreshadowing. Maybe this is a podcast that, when everyone's going nuts about the Rams, drafting Khalen Saunders, we're able to kind of throw this out there and people are listening to it, right after he's drafted. Who knows?
Right. We're just going to have to wait and see, and fingers crossed that Khalen potentially, can end up a Los Angeles Ram.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, we do have the Rams prospect meetings list. I've kind of, accumulated names. It started with the East-West Shrine game. That's really where it starts. And then the Senior Bowl, when you get to ask these guys and it gets publicized and everything. But Tyree Jackson, we'll start at the top with quarterbacks. Tyree Jackson was the first one. I got the confirmation when I interviewed him post-practice, and he said he's met with the Rams, and he definitely thought they would be a good spot. But obviously we know how I feel about Tyree Jackson. I think he's the biggest boom or bust prospect in this draft, potentially, and it would be a great, in my opinion, I think he'd be a great developmental guy behind Jared Goff with enormous upside. But what are your thoughts on him with the Rams?
I know I've talked about Tyree on a previous episode, and he's someone who I honestly have not seen too much film on, but from what I have seen, I think he's definitely probably a second-round guy. But as you said, someone who needs to be developed more and is probably not a guy who's going to walk right in and start. So I don't foresee him ending up on the Rams. I don't see him being available anywhere after the third round, and the Rams obviously don't have a second or third round pick. I don't foresee them taking him in the first round, so I'm going to bet that that's probably something that's not going to happen, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, we weren't expecting somebody like Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo to fall in the fifth round last year. Maybe something like that were to happen, but there's another interesting one. At the East-West Shrine game, the Rams met with Marcus McMaryion from Fresno State. I think this is an interesting one because he's not really a quarterback that's being talked about. And he's got some interesting, he's got some good accuracy from, I've watched him a little bit, not enough to give him a grade yet. But, he has some good accuracy. He's fearless in the pocket, will look down the barrel of, that shotgun and take the hit and really just sacrifice himself to get that, big time throw. I think he can, make the back shoulder throw. I think he has, the mobility in the pocket So this is, somebody that intrigues me. I just think, maybe his mechanics are too poor, where I think, at times it leads to, some inaccuracy here and there, not enough ball velocity. And, really I just look at him as somebody that is probably either going to go late, day 3 or going to be a UDFA to watch out for in case the Rams go that route.
Yeah, I honestly have not seen any film on him, so I can't speak about that, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, that's cool. I like when people take my word for it. Hopefully I don't let you down. Gardner Minshew is the next one, and I spoke with him, and he said he's met with the Rams a few times, and he was very complimentary of the offense, Sean McVay, and what it would be like to play for them. I think it would be awesome. He'd be somebody that, he's got that pocket mobility. He's got that, the rock star mentality. I feel like he could absolutely be a quarterback in this league. I don't think anything's too big for him. He led Washington State after, losing the Pac-12 all-time passing leader, in Luke Falk. So, I think that's kind of a big deal. And he led them to a fantastic season, a season where they really came close to, getting in that college football playoff. And who knows, they might have gotten in had they, expanded that thing 2 years ago. But that's a conversation for another day. But Gardner Minshew, I like the accuracy. I like the pocket mobility. Keeps his head, his eyes downfield. I always like that in a quarterback. Don't dip your head, because once you dip your head, it's really hard to reset and make your reads down the field. As long as you keep your eyes downfield while you're running, you can realistically extend the play. And so I do like Minshew as a developmental guy. I think more of like a 4th or a 5th rounder. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets taken earlier, but I would be shocked if he goes undrafted like I saw the other day, someone said.
Yeah, Gardner is someone who I really like, someone who I think would fit really well into the Rams offense and could learn a lot behind Jared Goff. And, if anything were to happen to Goff and Minshew needed to step in, I think that would be somebody that I would like to have in there. And yeah, I for sure see this guy getting drafted. I could even see him going at the end of the 3rd round, honestly. So I don't really buy any of the talk that he could go undrafted at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think it's kind of along the terms of somebody like, a Brad Kaya, where, teams had him, they had all different grades on him, and I know analysts thought he was a 4th rounder, and I liked him a lot, but he ended up going undrafted. I think it's kind of like that, where, it's just a former quarterback that looked like kind of around the Minshew grade level, and then he goes undrafted. I think those little, notions from previous experiences, I think, creep into people's minds, and that's why, something like that happens. But moving on, Jordan Ta'amu, I think this guy is a lot better than people give him credit for. I think when you look at it, and you have DK Metcalf, and you have A.J. Brown, and you have DeMarcus Lodge, and you have Dawson Knox. I mean, Metcalf's my wide receiver 1, A.J. Brown is in my top 5, DeMarcus Lodge is in my top 10 right now, subject to change, and Dawson Knox is my number 2 tight end. So he had a lot of weapons. But the problem is people that didn't watch the film, Alexis, I feel like they think that Ole Miss was held back, their offense was held back by Jordan. I could tell you that is not true at all. I think Jordan, he reminds me a lot of Brett Hundley in the fact he's kind of a dual threat guy. He has a compact build, and I like the way, he can throw the deep ball with accuracy. I like his ball placement, and I just like his overall poise in the pocket. I think he's going to, be a solid football player at the next level, and, kind of like a Hundley or like a Kaiser, maybe, start in the league and, kind of go, back and forth as a backup and a starter. But I like him for the Rams. I think he'd be, a really nice developmental piece behind Goff, and, you see the trend here. There's actually a lot of names in this draft that make sense for what the Rams need in a quarterback.
Right. I agree. And I think that Jordan could be one of those guys. And like you mentioned, I think he's somebody who did get overlooked because he had such a talented supporting cast. that sometimes people got so caught up in his receivers and his tight end that people didn't pay as much attention to him. And I think he's a guy that he's a good quality quarterback. He's going to get drafted, and he's somebody who I think has a lot of potential and to be worked with.
I firmly agree with that, and I forgot to mention he was interviewed at the East-West Shrine game. And the little kind of a surprising one, the Rams really haven't met with any receivers that I know of, but they met with Marcus McMarion's number one receiver, Keyshawn Johnson, from Fresno State. I thought this was an interesting thing just off the fact that they're meeting with a receiver, and, it came early on in the draft process. And I will say this. Teams don't always want to meet with every single guy. Sometimes they have boxes that they need to check. Sometimes they have character concerns that they need to, check on and things like that. So, a meeting is always worth it. But I've seen teams in the past use meetings to deter other teams from kind of figuring out what their draft plan is.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I was kind of surprised to see that they met with him, but I think it's more of what you said and not maybe actual interest in drafting a receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's very talented and really showed out during the East-West Shrine game. But if they're going to draft a receiver, I don't think they're going to meet with any of them. I think it's going to be something that kind of comes out of nowhere because if they meet with a bunch of receivers, teams are going to, flock to receivers. They don't want, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Brandon Cooks, and then the Rams to get another receiver on top of that. No team wants the Rams to get better with the receiver group. So, I don't think they'd show their hand. So, I mean, maybe they do end up drafting a receiver later on, but, I like what they have. I don't think they really have to go that route unless there's somebody that, like if Keelan Doss falls in the 5th round, I think just off, your board, if he's not number one on your board or near the top, I guess you don't. But, I mean, he's got to be. I mean, I think he is a 3rd-round talent out of UC Davis and maybe even better than that. And if he were to be there, somebody like that in the 5th round, maybe a Penny Hart, I think you could make the argument, hey, I draft a guy like Penny Hart. He can, return kicks and punts. I don't have to re-sign JoJo Natson. And he just kind of fills the void for Natson. Because, I mean, I think they have an argument as long as they get a guy that can help you on special teams and on offense, but mainly special teams. I think that's the only time you'll see the Rams go after a receiver in this draft.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the tight end group. CJ Conrad, East-West Shrine game from Kentucky. They met with him. They met with Daniel Helm from Duke. They met with Trayvon Wesco at the Senior Bowl from Cal. And they met with Caleb Wilson, a late call-up for the injured Donald Parham. Very talented Stetson tight end at the Senior Bowl as well. Caleb had a rough go because he got called up and he had a bunch of drops in the game. And, obviously you can kind of credit that to the fact that, he took the red eye in and, I mean, he was on a play and he was off it. And then he was asked to put on pads and a helmet. So I don't really put too much stock into that, but I do think it's interesting. The Rams are kind of telling you something with their meetings. Hey, they're interested in a quarterback. They're interested in tight end. I'm not so sure that Higbee and Everett are guaranteed to be the 1 and 2 next year. I could definitely see, Higbee somebody that they consider trading this year. So, I think that's a position to highlight. And in my recent mock draft, I have them taking TJ Hawkinson for this reason. I think they are open to getting better. And I think they're a team, if they see a guy that they like high enough on their board and he falls, I think they take him. That's why, I could see a Hawk, draft pick at 31.
Right. I totally agree. I think it says a lot that we see that the Rams have expressed interest in some of these tight ends. And as you mentioned, they were considering trading Higbee last season. It's something that could very well happen this season, and I think they're definitely not going to turn their back on any tight end prospects that they really like.
I totally agree, and you also have to factor in that they have a new tight ends coach in Wes Phillips, so he'll definitely be Wade's kid. He'll definitely be in on the meetings if they're looking to grab a tight end. He'll definitely be part of it. He has that familiarity with Sean McVay and Shane Waldron. So I think that'll be interesting. I know Waldron's going over the quarterbacks, being the coach for them, but I think those guys they'll have a meeting of the minds, and they'll decide whether or not they feel the value's there and they can draft a tight end, or they don't need to. But to me, I think you have to look at it. The Rams have 3 tight ends on the roster right now. Actually 4 with the futures deal for Henry Krieger Coble. But you look at Gerald Everett, and the potential is sky high with him. I mean, he could end up being a superstar. But you look at Tyler Higbee, we kind of know what Tyler Higbee is. I mean, he's not going to be anything better than a top 25 tight end at most. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like he's developed more as a blocker, which is kind of crazy because at Western Kentucky, he jumped off the film as a receiver. But then when you look at like Johnny Munt, yes, he's athletic and he was fun and everything, in preseason. But Munt's injury history at Oregon is something to consider. I mean, he had, a ton of injuries, and while he stayed healthy for the most part in the NFL, I don't think he is a player that you cannot absolutely replace. He is 24, and I think that benefits him. But as far as Henry Krieger Coble, who I believe is 25 years old, was on the Broncos practice squad, a guy from Iowa, more of a blocking guy. I don't think he's really anybody that's going to stop them from drafting anybody. So, I really think you got to look at the tight end position. And this is, Alexis, this is one, if you pound the table for a tight end right now, Rams fans are going to be like, what are you talking about? They're going to give you pushback. But, just don't be surprised, in the draft when the Rams select a tight end.
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all at this point. I think all the signs are pointing to interest on their end about looking at tight ends. And who knows, maybe it gets to the point where they thought they were going to take a tight end and they don't because the guys they liked aren't available. But it's definitely an option for them.
Oh, without a doubt. And then another thing that's an option for them, when you look at the offensive line, they met with Andre Dillard from Washington State at the Senior Bowl. First to second rounder in my mind. I think he's very talented. I thought he did a really nice job of kind of putting himself out there at the Senior Bowl. So it kind of speaks volume that they're kind of going after somebody like that to meet with. I don't know if he'll be there at 31. I don't think it's a guarantee. Once he gets his hands on the combine, I think that's really his opportunity to kind of shoot up. We've seen it before with offensive linemen. Mainly the kid from UCLA, whose name escapes me, that got drafted last year, Colton Miller. The athleticism was there, and the Raiders got him early. I believe it was like the 11th pick, and that's normally what happens at the combine. But then the Rams also met with a guard, O'Shea Dugas from Louisiana Tech. I think that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Just kind of showing that, they are, interested in that offensive line. And there are definitely question marks. Is Andrew Whitworth going to come back? Do they, if Sullivan agrees to not retire, do the Rams want him back? It's kind of all that, everything being played. And, obviously Roger Saffold being a free agent kind of throws a wrench in that as well. So that's my thoughts on those guys. Dugas was a East-West Shrine Game meeting, and Dillard was a Senior Bowl guy.
Yeah, Dillard's someone who I actually think is probably going to go at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second. So I was kind of I think that the Rams probably, since they met with him, are probably considering him potentially at that 31 spot.
Yeah, he's not going to be there when they pick again, in the third round. So, I definitely hear you there. Moving on, the Rams met with 2 defensive linemen, and first one is the guy that was featured on this podcast, Khalen Saunders from Western Illinois. You heard him, the relationship with his coach, and I think his connections to the scouting staff and how much he wants to be in LA and how much he likes, obviously loves Aaron Donald. That it'll be an interesting one, and he comes from the Senior Bowl, and that's something the Rams have really put a premium on before they go and grab somebody. If you look at the drafts, Cooper Kupp, Josh Reynolds, Jameel Demby, Obanai Okoronkwo. Just off the top of my head, I can name those guys from the Senior Bowl. So, Samson Ebukam as well. So, I mean, there are plenty of guys that came from the Senior Bowl that they selected. Gerald Everett is another. So, I think he'd definitely be up there for consideration. And, I'm going to say this right now. Don't be surprised if Khalen Saunders ends up in the first round. He reminds me so much of the kid that got drafted by the Jets last year, whose name also escapes me. I don't know if you remember the kid from Fort Hays State. Now I'm forgetting his name.
I know who you're talking about, and his name is escaping me.
I feel Nathan Shepard. So Nathan Shepard from Fort Hays State was an interesting one because he actually balled out at the Senior Bowl practices, and then I think the third day when I was there last year, he broke his hand. So they called up Bilal Nichols from Delaware, who ended up going in the 5th round of the Bears. But surprisingly, I believe Shepard was the 2nd round pick by the Jets. So that's kind of what I see in Khalen Saunders, a guy that comes from a really small school. I mean, I don't think you can locate Fort Hays State. I don't think any one of you guys that are listening can locate Fort Hays State without looking it up. So it kind of goes to show you how small that school is. So I think it's another small school, defensive interior lineman presence that, really made a name for himself at the Senior Bowl. But, I mean, the talent is so there that I think, with the athleticism, I think they could really shoot up in the first round. And, I know Nathan Shepard didn't, but don't be surprised if Khalen Saunders ends up having to be taken at 31 by the Rams.
Oh, totally. I think it's a very, very possible and realistic option for the Rams at 31 if Khalen's still there. He's a guy who has been in the headlines for a reason and has been blowing people away with his talent and his potential. And I think, personally, it would be an incredible pickup for the Rams at 31. If he doesn't go before that, and we're just going to have to wait and see. But it's definitely something to think about and definitely something to watch out for.
Without a doubt. So definitely keep your eye on him. Don't be the guy that goes on the message boards and the forums and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and says, "Who's this?" You just heard him on the podcast. You can look up film. This is a guy that you want to get familiar with because I think he's going to go pretty high. I look at him right now. I think his stock is late 2nd, early 3rd, but I think that's going to change. And so, when I'm projecting a guy's value over time, I think his stock is just going to be too high where if the Rams want him enough, they'll have to take him at 31. And that may be taking a guy like Saunders over a guy like Simmons, who's probably a top 10 talent, who's there because of, obviously the character concerns, but the torn ACL. So that would be, a tough decision. It's not one I would really want to make, Alexis, because I like them both a lot. And, I think Saunders, when I'm done grading him, I think he's going to be near the top. I don't think, we're not talking about him being like Quinnen Williams, but he doesn't have to be. I think he's going to help a team no matter where he goes. And, guys that have that level of athleticism and understanding of the game. And, obviously when he talked to us, really interesting tidbit was when he was talking about being a running back and the advantages and everything. I just think that's really going to play a huge role. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the Pro Bowl and maybe an All-Pro down the road.
Oh, for sure. He's a guy, I believe, who is a first-round talent, but will probably end up being taken in the 2nd, maybe early 3rd, but probably somewhere in the 2nd round, simply because of the fact that he went to a smaller school and the exposure issue, and probably hasn't been scouted as in depth as some of these other guys, but somebody who I think definitely has all the potential that a first-round guy would have.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then moving on, defensive lineman John Kaminsky. I had the pleasure of talking with him, and he met with the Rams, told me that, and, he really was humbled by the Senior Bowl, and obviously coming from Charleston, he doesn't get a ton of exposure, so it was huge for him. I didn't feel like he had the best week, but nonetheless, I think he improved his stock a little bit, and he's a round 3 to 5 guy. It really depends on how the NFL looks at him. He could be considered kind of a tweener. But I don't know. I think 4-3 defensive end makes sense for him. He's not a stand-up guy. In a 3-4, I think he'd have to play like the Franklin Myers role. So I don't know if the Rams will snag him or anything, but I do know that they met with him, and I found that interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll be honest with you. I've not watched too much on him. But everything that I've heard from him, I've heard from talking to you. And I can't make a great analysis on that. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I don't expect you to know all these guys because, sometimes the Rams, they'll meet with this obscure name, and I go and watch the film, and I'm like, oh, okay, but, I didn't know him, beforehand. I remember friend of the podcast, David Jones, free safety from Richmond, who won a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. I remember he came on, and I invited him strictly because I wrote an article that he met with the Rams. So, because I found that out, and, I wrote the article, and I tagged him in it, just tagging him on Twitter or whatever. And he reached out to me, and, he, retweeted it and said thank you and whatnot. And I asked him to come on, and, he kind of explained how the whole pre-draft meeting went. And now, Alexis, I know you probably know this, but I just want to let people know that are listening. The 30-man pre-draft visits are completely different than the meetings at the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Game and the Combine. Because the 30 pre-draft visits, it's a non-local, I guess the way it's really defined is a non-local pre-draft visit. You can only have 30 of them, and they come into your facility. They meet with your staff. They meet the players if there are any, working in the gym and everything. And it's actually a pretty cool thing. I mean, I remember years back when Amari Cooper, walked into St. Louis. I believe it was St. Louis, or he might have been in the no, I think it might have been L.A., and he was going around Instagram and the whole the setup, the Rams offices and stuff, and he posted on Instagram, there's a picture of Isaac Bruce, and he posted on Instagram, and he's like, I want to be, just like him, and I want to wear horns or whatever. So I thought that was crazy. It's just a cool experience, obviously, for these guys, because that's when you start to really feel like it's real, when you're walking into teams' front offices and talking to their GMs and, head coaching staff and, just that whole shebang, basically. So, I mean, there's been, stories in the past where a guy has gone in the weight room and, the star quarterback is there or the defensive lineman, and, it makes the visit that much sweeter. But I don't know, it's just something I felt like adding because I remember David Jones coming on and talking about his Rams visit and thought that was cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's always fun to hear about those visits, and I think it would probably be a super cool experience for the prospects to get to go and visit various team organizations and see what it's like to potentially work there and be part of that organization.
Yeah, I mean, especially the culture the Rams are building. I think a lot of these players can't wait to go there, and there's free agents that want to go there. So hold on to your hats because this offseason is going to be crazy. But for linebackers, I mean, the Rams they met with Tavon Coney as per our podcast yesterday. Coney is somebody that, again, very tough physical linebacker that can play the run, that can cover, from Notre Dame, a Senior Bowl guy. So he confirmed that, the Rams met with him. Terrell Hanks, who I absolutely love as well. New Mexico State, just former defensive back. So you obviously see the quick twitch, and you see the back pedal, and how quickly he can flip his hips, and just his lateral agility and short area burst. So I love what he brings to the table. And I think both of them would fit the Rams. And then you have to look at Justin Hollins, the guy they met with at the East-West Shrine Game, and for good reason. Hollins, I believe, was the MVP of the East-West Shrine Game. Physical player, very quick off the edge for Oregon, and I think he's going to make a lot of money for a team coming real soon. And then Sion Taki from BYU, just another guy that was at the East-West Shrine game and then got a late call up to the Senior Bowl, and they met with him at the East-West Shrine game. So, they're definitely interested in that linebacker group.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone who is familiar with the Rams knows that one of the most criticized positions on the field this past season was kind of that linebacking core. And it's no secret that the Rams are interested in potentially taking a linebacker in round 1 or later on in the draft. So I think there's going to be a lot more names that come out, a lot more people that the Rams look at in that position, and it's definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. They're trying to find a running man for Corey Littleton. I think they're preparing to move on from Mark Barron. And, like I keep saying, I'm not saying that he can't be the guy next to Littleton, but I don't know if Micah Kaiser is going to be a starter for this team. I think he'll be a 2-down linebacker, sub-package guy, and a great special teamer. But I don't know, 5th round, I don't know if they see, starting potential. I don't know if he's fast enough for the way this game is now. So they're definitely doing their due diligence on that end. But then, moving on, as we kind of wrap this thing up, we go into the secondary, the cornerbacks. Rashad Fenton from South Carolina, East-West Shrine game, somebody that made a lot of noise out there. Would be an interesting move there. And then Mark Fields, I had an opportunity to speak with him literally right after the Senior Bowl game. Spoke with him on the field, and it was really cool when you go up to somebody like Alexis. I don't know if you've experienced this, like covering a game before, but I left the press box. I didn't do it last year. I just kind of stayed in the press box, waited to get my fourth quarter and final game notes, kind of delivered to my little desk area. But this time I went down, and you get to go on the field after the game, and it was like Mark Fields came up to me, like he saw that I was obviously wanting to interview him, and he came up to me, and very, very nice guy. And right after playing a game, you're just in an all-star game, and you're sweating, you're like dripping sweat, and this guy wants to come over and do an interview. I thought that was cool. But Mark Fields confirmed when I asked him, he's like, I met with the Rams a lot of times, so it's an interesting one there. I believe it's his uncle or his father, and I have to double check that. But his uncle or his father, Mark Fields, he's Mark Fields the second, and his uncle or his father's Mark Fields the first. He was actually on the Rams Super Bowl team, and I'm actually going to double check that right now. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Mark Fields?
I like Mark Fields. I think he's a guy who you get in there and who you develop and hope that he can step in that starting position. And the cornerback position is interesting in general for the Rams because we have Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, 2 superstar guys who are in the last year of their contract this season. And I've said before on the show that I think one of them is going to have to walk. Probably Talib is going to walk because I don't think both of them get the big contracts that they're going to be looking for. And so I think the Rams this year are starting to kind of look and see who that replacement might be or who they can add into that corner position to get the depth that they need.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think Fields is a great option. Later on in the draft, he's somebody that probably has the talent to go in the first 3 rounds, but due to the lack of his play and, whatever off the field stuff was going on, I think he'll fall to the 5th or 6th round. And if so, I think the Rams absolutely have to pounce on that opportunity. But I can tell you right now, I just looked it up. Mark Fields was on the 2001 Rams team that played in the Super Bowl, started 12 games for them. So that was, now I have to figure out which, is it his uncle or is it his father? I should probably know this, but, I'm not. So
I have no idea.
Well, it's good to know. I should probably not be looking for it on the fly. I normally am prepared, but just kind of, I don't know. I've been wanting to know this for a while. I looked it up like last week, and then I forgot it. Let's see here. So let's see here. Nope, that doesn't work. It's annoying because Mark Fields the second doesn't really have a wiki page, so it's kind of hard to look. Let's see it here. Yeah, it's
Well, I guess we can assume that it's got to be his dad or his uncle.
I need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his dad. Cool. All right, I had to know that. Yeah, his dad is Mark Fields the first, and he played on the Rams Super Bowl team, so that whole thing. But I think that'll be interesting. I definitely like him later on in the draft. And then Amon Marshall, Biggie Marshall from USC. I watched a lot of him, and I really like Amon Marshall because he's somebody. I'm sure you know this. I mean, coming out of high school, the early mock drafts that go like 3 years later, he was considered like top 5 pick. I mean, he was. People are like, Amon Marshall is going to be a superstar, and I feel as though his play has dropped. Don't get me wrong, but he's being a little overlooked, and I think it's because of USC's lack of success as of recent.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Haven't seen too much on him, watched him a little bit, and he was someone who I think at the beginning of the previous college season was kind of assumed to be maybe taken like second, third round, and now I believe it's kind of like a 5th, 6th round type thing.
Yeah, so I think he'll probably go 4th or 5th round. I like him a lot, and I know when I asked him if he wanted to play for the Rams, he actually went nuts, and he was like, absolutely, and he's a great interview because he was on a podium, after the Senior Bowl game. And it's like no one knew who he was, so everyone was too afraid to ask. And I was like, "Are you Biggie Marshall?" And he started cracking up because he's like, "How did you know?" Because he's like no one else knew. He was just sitting there on a podium, like kind of, just sitting there. He wasn't on his phone or anything because you don't want to be on your phone. Then you look like you don't have, you don't care. And then all of a sudden a TMZ article comes out that, oh no, Amon Marshall was on his phone and wasn't, so he, he's waiting and no one came over. And then I went over and I had the interview. I asked him, if the Rams had met with him, and he said, yep, and he'd love to play at the Rams. So I think he'd be a nice fit, mid-round guy, and a lot of potential there because, again, I think he still is somewhat of a first-round, second-round talent. He just has to kind of, reach that potential. And again, USC struggles, I think, covered him up. But moving on to the last cornerback, I interviewed Rock Ya-Sin from Temple, and he and Deebo Samuel were kind of going at it all week long. I mean, I know Samuel's stock went through the roof and people were going nuts for him, but I really was impressed with Rock Ya-Sin. Now, while Deebo Samuel beat him most of the time, and literally Rock told me that was the case, I mean, Rock was still right there. It's kind of hard to guard a number one receiver. I mean, even when you have perfect coverage, somebody like Antonio Brown or, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., they just make it happen. And I feel like that's kind of, a credit to what Deebo is, what he is. So, I like Rock Ya-Sin. I've seen him go in the second round, all down to the 4th round. So I think he's a 2nd to 4th round guy. Kind of depends on if a team falls in love with him enough. But he's not 6'2", like the site said. He's more like 5'11". So that's the kind of the drawback there.
Yeah, I like Rock Ya-Sin a lot, and I think he's probably going to go at the end of the 2nd or the beginning of the 3rd. And he's a guy who's got a lot of potential. I think he might need to be polished a little bit, but definitely a guy who could potentially be a starter in this league.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, he sounded interested in the Rams, and obviously they met with him. So there's that. And then the last 2 guys, and I love both of them. One is somebody that I have a hard time finding any negativity, any negative film on, is Nasir Adderley. I mean, besides the fact he's kind of a smaller guy, looks more like a slot corner at free safety, Nasir is just, I mean, he's an incredible player. I really don't think he has many holes in his game. I think he knows what he's doing. He's got great football IQ, somebody that has great range. He's a tackling machine. I think he's a sound tackler. I think he's got great ball skills. He is more it comes natural to him. I don't think he's really a reactionary player, which is a good thing. There's not a lot of thinking. He's just doing. So this is somebody that I think if he was 6'2", 220 with his talent, I think he goes number 1 overall. I mean, I think you're talking about a Hall of Fame potential talent. But because he's 5'11" or 5'10", I think teams are going to kind of look at him more mid-first round. I don't think he falls to the Rams, but the Rams met with him, so I find that interesting. And it's I'd obviously love it, but I just don't know how realistic it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a top 15 pick. I don't think he's someone the Rams trade up for. I'd love to see him fall to 31. If he's there at 31, then he's a guy who we'd be lucky to have. But like you said, I think this guy's a superstar. I think he's got, if he stays healthy and he stays playing the level he's playing at, future Hall of Fame caliber guy. And I think he's probably going to go top 10, top 15.
Yeah, I agree. I have him going at 15, I believe, to the Carolina Panthers. With all the turnover they've had, they only really brought back Eric Reed. And it doesn't look like they're going to re-sign anybody else. So I would expect him to kind of go there. And there are other teams, and this is kind of why, you talk about Nasir Adderley. There's so many safeties that can help you in this draft. And this is why, with our, podcast we just did, the free agency game we did, it's why I didn't, pick up a safety, because I just feel like there's so much there. Why would you waste your money on, why would you give Earl Thomas $11 million annually coming off that injury when over the course of his last 3 seasons, he's gone from playing every single game to like playing 11 games and then 4 games. And, that worries me. So I don't know if I'm willing to shell out that money. I'd rather spend, the draft capital and get a young safety to kind of, build around. I think you have a star in John Johnson, so get him a running man, and, you could have probably 5-6 different options in this draft to do so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
And then, speaking of John Johnson, Boston College safety Will Harris was one of the more fun interviews at the Senior Bowl. Guy that gave me a lot of information. He was really excited to see John, who he calls him, at the in the Super Bowl. So he was really excited for him, and he told me about the Boston College DBU group chat he has with Cam Moore. And John Johnson and Lucas Dennis, who's also in this draft, and Isaac Yiadom and Justin Simmons. So they're starting to carve out a little DBU factory going on, and I think Will Harris is somebody that kind of got thrown in as a strong safety only, and he really showed the ability at the Senior Bowl to flip his hips, have the range, just great ball skills, and his timing is just perfect. I mean, I watched him multiple times get like the nonchalant kind of arm hold in the back of near the waist, the back of the waist. And I mean, you're not really going to get away with that often if they see a pull. Like if a referee sees any tugging on the jersey, it's going to get called. But I think he does such a great job at positioning himself and timing the pass. And I thought he did a great job in coverage. I thought he did a great job in run fits. And this is somebody that'll probably go 5th round. I think teams will forget about him because the Senior Bowl has come and gone. And I think I don't know how well he'll test at the combine, but frankly, I don't care. I mean, his character checks boxes. He comes from Boston College, a college that has put numerous talents from the secondary area of the field, in the NFL. And I think Will Harris next to John Johnson could be like lethal. I mean, they would probably only have to spend a 5th rounder on him unless his stock really, if he tests really well at the combine, I could see 4th or 3rd. But I don't know. I mean, this is a deep safety class, and I'll take 5th round Will Harris and guys like Marquis Christian, Blake Countess, and Steven Parker, and kind of rotate them and see what works over spending $11 million on a safety.
Oh, for sure. I agree. I'm totally with you there.
So do you have anything else to add, Alexis? Because I think we wrapped up that whole list. I mean, it's going to keep growing, and I'm going to keep editing it on downtownrams.com, and it's a pinned post on Facebook. But as of right now, that's kind of all we have.
Yeah, not too much to add. I would just say, like you said, the list is going to keep growing, and it's definitely fun to see who the Rams are talking to and fun to speculate about it. And I'm interested to see who they decide to keep talking to.
Yeah, so am I. It's something that really intrigues me, and these interviews also really intrigue me. So we'll be back tomorrow, not with interviews. We got our awesome NFL mock draft that's going to be live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. So definitely check that out. We have AJ Draft Scout, AJ Schulte, who is coming on as a guest from Twitter, the draft guy that I believe writes for Devy Watch. So he does great work, obviously, and we're glad to have him on. Blake Grisak is also going to join the show, and it'll be Alexis and I, and we kind of divvied up all the teams, and we'll be picking them, and I'm really excited for this. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've been waiting for this all week, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And what better to do than on a Sunday when next after Sunday, then you have the work week and the school week. So
right, it is going to be fun. I think it's going to probably get a little bit competitive, and we're going to be fighting to get our guys. But I'm really excited for it. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're all going to have our boards, and you might hear a slam of the fist on a table or something. No. But
I wouldn't doubt it.
But, I mean, hey, it's going to be a lot of fun, and then, obviously, you guys are going to want to tune in to the conclusion of it, which is Monday, at same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and we actually are doing the second round as well. And we actually wanted to do a third round, but it's just too much. So we're doing the 2 rounds, and we're really excited to do the live one. So tell your friends. I mean, all you Rams listeners, and if you're not a Rams listener, it's pretty easy. Just, listen, tomorrow and Monday. But if, tell your friends. I mean, if they're not Rams fans, this is the one time, if they haven't listened to the Downtown Rams podcast before, they should tune in, because I think it's going to be a blast. I think our listeners are going to love it, and it kind of gives you an idea of, where these guys fit. Because, Alexis, oftentimes, with the draft, you could really like a player, like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, for instance. But, you could have a second-round grade on him. I could have a first. Someone else could have a fourth. And it's kind of cool because one person could potentially draft him in the first 2 rounds. So, it really just depends on, who believes, where someone believes he fits and, where he goes. And it's not just him, it's a bunch of players. So I'm really, enthused by that. And I'm sure other people are as well, because, without these mock drafts, the casual listener and the casual reader, they don't really know where any of these players are going.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is interesting to get other people's perspectives. There'll be guys who I think are first round grades, and someone else will be like, nah, I have them going in the third or something like that. So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to find out tomorrow when we do our live mock, who's taking who and what people think of who and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So guys, you got to tune in for that. I think that's going to do it. So for Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Kraft, and he was Khalen Saunders. This has been episode 158 of the Downtown Rams podcast. We are rolling. We don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Runaway freight train, and hope you guys are trying to jump on that train as we continue rolling on to something we don't even know where it's going. But thanks again, guys, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Later. Hello, listeners. Do you have a local business in or near Los Angeles? Are you trying to promote that said local business? Well, the Downtown Rams podcast is open to any and all business sponsorships. For details and any inquiries, please contact us at downtownrams@gmail.com, or you can direct message us on any social media platform that we currently use. Horns up.